Happy Friday, Vendasta, and welcome to All Hands and Product Showcase for Friday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Please give it up for your host today, Brian Larson.
All right. Welcome to All Hands, everybody. It's nice to see you. And once again, thank you, John, for the nice introduction. We've got a fresh, very Valentine's-esque special theme for your enjoyment today. And so, it seems like Valentine's Day is one of those days where, you get some pros and cons. Some people love it, some people hate it. But if you step back from it and say whether it's the current love, a lost love, or the next love, it's a good opportunity to celebrate love in general. There's a lot of love in this room. I can feel it. I can just that little vibe hitting me right now, and know that it's reciprocal. It's right back at you. So it's a good opportunity for us to share some love and enjoy a day filled with it. So let's dive in. We've got a pretty tight program here for you today. We've got 14 anniversaries that we're going to celebrate, 2 kudos, and a little bit of customer love, which is very appropriate on Valentine's Day. I'm going to talk a little bit about UX design in the era of AI, and then our very own John Nair is going to come up and tell us about Vendasta Connect, so that'll be really exciting. So without further ado, let's dive right on in. Okay, so who do we have for anniversaries going on this week? We have, at 1 year, we have Manish. Manish celebrating 1 year as Developer 3. Thank you, Manish, for 1 year of hard work. Appreciate you. On 2 years, we have a number of people. We have Harmanbur, Arnab, and Chandru, all celebrating 2 years with us. Thank you so much for 2 years. Also on the 2 years, we have Pooja and Manisha. And 3 years, we have Anju, Induja, and Vijay, all celebrating 3 years. Thank you so much. 3 years, great milestone. A lot of work gets done in 3 years, let me tell you. All right. On the 4-year side, we have Artie and Andrew celebrating 4 years. Amazing, amazing. If you have to, put up with Andrew, I'd almost feel like he's been here for more than that. But anyways, I guess it's just been 4 years for you, Andrew. But always good, always good. All right, we bypassed the 5 years, so we don't have any big special videos or anything, but we do have Nigel celebrating 6 years. Nigel, awesome, Developer 2 with us. Thank you for 6 years of effort, Nigel. Much love, appreciate you. And Leon, 7 years for Leon Simpson, so great. If a lot of work gets done in 3 years, then a ton gets done in 7, so thank you for all that contribution and committed effort. Thank you, Leon. 12 years, though, we have Marianne Fass, and the 12 years is a huge milestone for any employee, and so this is a huge one. Thank you so much, Marianne, for everything that you've done over the past 12 years. All right, with that, let's slide into kudos. And so we've got our 16 leadership principles that are, of course, showcased out in our kudos. And who do we have today? Well, this one comes from Nate, and it goes out to Hunter. He says, want to give a shout out to Hunter. One of my largest partners had been having an issue with connecting an Instagram account, and we couldn't figure out why. It had been going on for weeks. Enter Hunter. Despite not being one of her accounts, she proactively assisted the HV marketing services team and was able to deep dive, find the issue, and deliver results. I love the way Hunter displayed ownership, so thank you so much for solving that customer problem, Hunter. That's fantastic. We have one additional kudos. This comes from Janessa, and it goes out to Katie. I want to give Katie a big shout out for her amazing contributions to the relaunch support channel in GChat and for truly living our Make Others Better leadership principle. It's amazing that, even though she's not part of the support team, she consistently goes above and beyond to share her extensive product knowledge, helping both customers and colleagues. Thank you, Katie, for your willingness to help and for making everyone around you better. And thanks so much, Katie. Thanks for those that took the time to write kudos this week. It's always fantastic to give a little bit of love to our fellow coworkers and to showcase them here at All Hands. So thank you so much, everyone, for sort of also abiding by those leadership principles and embracing them in everything that you do. All right. Customer love, I believe we've got one of these this week. And so let's see what we've got going on. Okay, so this comes from Elaine Cossett of Brand Messaging, and it goes out to Bashmeen. Bashmeen was so great to work with, answered my questions, and was very patient with me. And then another one here from Jules Yates at Habitat Vault, as Bashmeen kindly answered my queries very swiftly and let me understand that sometimes it can take time to populate the data fully. She assured me that all is okay and the system is functioning as it should. I usually have a lot of campaigns to set up generally and wanted to triple check my efforts had not been in vain. A very pleasant experience with Yesware. Thank you. And so thank you, Bashmeen, for your customer obsession and you know, the customers bringing in this type of love. It doesn't just happen. It comes from a little bit of hard work, right? So much appreciated. Okay, moving on to events. So last night we just celebrated a gin pairing event that is exceptionally tasty looking. And so I just wanted to sort of take a moment and say that this is something that's going to start happening quarterly. Our very own Chef Keith will start to roll these out. I believe the next one is around bourbon, perhaps in the area of whiskey. And so as we approach spring, if you're here around Vendasta HQ, keep your eye out for that event. There'll be sign-up forms for it. There'll be great food. You can essentially pair it with a fine bourbon, in this case, of course, with gin. And it makes for a really great night. So looking forward to the next event to come, and thank you for everyone in our food ops and essentially and just generally in operations to make these types of events happen. Some other things coming up. Well, first and foremost, the February Wellness Challenge is still going. It goes for the entire month. And so if you know, you're a fitness buff like myself, I've been dedicated to fitness every single day in February. Haven't laid on the couch once and just watched a movie and looked out at the darkness. It's just constant working out, yeah. And so if you're on the wellness side, make sure you log those in. There's house points involved, and it's a fantastic time. Of course, today is Ooh La La Valentine's Day, so we can enjoy that, and also Palentine's Day, which actually I didn't know about until this year, so it's pretty great that there's both of those. And Family Day, of course, we've got a long weekend here, so there's a stat holiday on Monday. If you're heading out for the long weekend, please drive safe. It's cold out there, and also just enjoy that time with friends and family. It'll be a fantastic long weekend here in the heart of winter on the Canadian side. And then on the 20th of February, we're going to have an Ideas on Tap. And so a little bit more information about that. It's Small Hacks, Big Wins pitch competition. And this is going to be essentially where people come in with their pitch to win $500. There's 20 spots available. The sign-ups are out now. It's a super exciting one. I've watched these for years and years in the past. This is not our first pitch competition we've had. There's some of my most favorite ideas on tap. You get people coming in with really passionate pitches, sort of showcasing their expertise on revealing a new idea. And so definitely sign up for that one. Let's bring a full house in. And also, it's February. It's been cold outside. Why not on the 20th come up, you know, and network and have a really fun time, listen to some great pitches. So it's a great opportunity just to get out and have some fun. And so I expect to see everybody there. Yeah, let's have a great time. And also, thanks for everybody who's putting this on. I know these things don't just happen. And so, you know, there seems to be the same set of characters that are always behind the scenes, working feverishly to make this stuff happen. So thank you so much. All right, with that, I'm going to shift into, learning and development. Let's not also forget that continuous learning is cool, and we got great sessions coming up. We got Tool Tip Tuesday, AI and automation best practices happening on the 18th. That's a must-do. You got platform training in the social marketing and reputation management space. That's fantastic on the 19th. If anyone needs a refresher in those spaces, or if you're a recent join to the company, that's a great way to get to know the product and the platform. There's Yesware training also on the 19th, and then Vendasta Workflow Wednesdays. This is going to be a fantastic time with Alistair going in on the 19th as well. So you've got options on the 19th of where your learning is directed. Each one of them, it's hard to choose, but I'm sure everyone out there could probably cherry pick one that says, yeah, I think I might need that one the most. So continuous learning, fantastic. Thanks for all the people that put that on as well. Okay, with that, I'm going to shift over and talk about user experience design today, UX. specifically in the era of AI. And wanted to kind of dive in and to sort of set the stage for this, rather than just dive in and say what's happening with UX plus AI, is sort of look at a little bit of trajectory in history. So we're going to go into the Wayback Machine back to 1984. And this was a really interesting year because this is actually when the first Macintosh computer was launched. And you can see in this visual here, you've even got the computer mouse. And while the computer mouse had actually been invented around in the 1960s, this is when it really started to become commercialized and popularized as a primary way to interact with a computer. And so along with this was also major steps forward in the interface that a computer had. And so if you're, from this era and were born maybe in the 70s or 80s, you probably remember inputting things like DOS prompts and moving into this era where all of a sudden the interface was a lot more usable. Now, around this same time frame, you got a gentleman named Don Norman. And Don Norman was essentially a usability architect very early on in the day. And around 1986, believe it or not, he published a book called User-Centered System Design, which in my opinion was way ahead of its time. He was thinking about human-centered UX experiences, very, very early on, right around the time when these sort of early interfaces of computers started to happen beyond the idea of just prompts and things like that. So he's getting in and offering new perspectives for how to design interfaces that are very human-centered, and is a really fascinating read for the time, and many of these sort of principles sort of still stand true. If you haven't read that one, you might be more familiar with the next book in '88, The Psychology of Everyday Things, which was later titled as The Design of Everyday Things. And this became a very, very popular book that Don Norman pushed out, and is one that actually still gets referenced today, despite the fact that it is now decades old. And so it's a really great book that talks essentially on how people interact with objects at its very basis. And so these are super interesting times, and leading into the 90s, it should come as no surprise that Don Norman was hired by Apple Computers at the time as their user experience architect. Now, the interesting thing about this, and why I'd share it, is this is the first time that the term user experience was used in a job title. And so if you were to ask me, how long has a UX professional been involved in software creation? Well, I can tell you pretty specifically that you're looking here at about 32 years of time, right? And so it's not exactly a young profession, but it's also not exactly one that's been around since, I don't know, we were building houses, for instance, or bridges, right? This is still a very, very new profession. And this is essentially one of the early thought leaders in the space. Now, by 1995, of course, we all know that the internet started to go mainstream. I've got a very early rendition of Yahoo to share with you here. This was actually Yahoo in 1995 at the company's inception. And there's a lot to be left. We look at this and kind of laugh at maybe some of the design of the time, but it was also fascinating. It was a major, major step in a technological advancement for humans, right? And so this is also the time when new websites would spawn, both by businesses and people, and the web started to grow essentially exponentially. One of the people that was actually actively writing and contributing into this early internet was a man by the name of Jakob Nielsen, who at the time worked for a company called Sun Microsystems. And again, if you were actively using computers in the 90s, you're probably familiar with Sun Microsystems. And Jakob Nielsen had a blog or a website called useit.com, and useit.com was essentially where he was actively blogging and writing about essentially usability and UX in the mid-90s, and again, very ahead of its time. Now, it's hard to find screenshots for some of these, but I did find a screenshot from an article that he published in '96, and this was actually around accessible design for users with disabilities. So when you think about the idea of accessibility, which is still very much relevant today in terms of user experience design, this is a guy in the '90s who was talking about how you can actually, look for design patterns and frameworks and things that you can do to essentially make your program, your website, or your app more accessible for those that might have disabilities, way ahead of its time. Now, these two gentlemen then come together with their sort of shared expertise and interest and form in 1998 what was Nielsen Norman Group, okay? And Nielsen Norman Group, for the next, 25 plus years, would essentially be one of the flagship companies to provide UX research and training. And I can say for myself, I've been through their UX certification programs. I reference their documentation. We use it a lot in terms of training here, but there are hundreds, thousands of organizations and people across the world that will leverage this company in terms of being on the forefront of UX research. So, in 2023, it's interesting also at this time frame is when Jakob Nielsen stepped down from CEO and ushered in the next CEO. He's in his 60s now. He's ready to enjoy the finer things of life, but he's still actively blogging on his own personal blog called UX Tigers, right? And so despite the fact that he's not the CEO anymore, he's still pushing out thought leadership articles decades later. Now, in 2023, he wrote an article around the idea of AI and calls it the first new UI paradigm in 60 years. And so what's interesting about looking at it this way is we're looking at something like a major paradigm shift in how we interact with a computer that essentially everybody in this room has only known one way, right? And we are moving into a new way. Now, that doesn't mean there's always been one way. What he's kind of getting at in this article, and I'll use, if you've looked at Brendan's presentation where he talks about the cycles of technological innovation, I'll layer the idea of the UI paradigm shifts on top of this so we can have a look at them. So the first thing that's happening way back in the 60s and even before then is a UI paradigm called batch processing. And if you're unfamiliar with batch processing, I wouldn't be surprised because there's probably very few Vendasta employees that were even alive at the time. But if we have a closer look at batch processing, essentially what's happening here is you would essentially use punch cards. And you would basically go through and prep these punch cards, load them into a computer, take off for the day, go have dinner with your family, come back the next day, and the computer would have rushed through and made all of its operational processes based on what you told it to do with punch cards. This was how people interacted. This was the user experience. This was the user interface. So, if we look now at the next era, what he says, in 60 years, we haven't seen a different UI paradigm. This is what's called command-based interaction design. This is what all of us at one point in our lives have fell in love with. If you're working with a tech company, I can generally assume that you've fallen in love with command-based interaction design. We just love moving that mouse around the screen and pecking on buttons, right? And so that is exactly what this system is. And if you go back in time, it is essentially enter a command, get a result, enter another command, get a result. And although we have made major movements in computing technology, this UI paradigm has essentially remained unchanged to today. We are more sophisticated, we have new devices, we have a lot of things that have happened, but this is essentially what we know. And so when we start to look at this next era, which is being referred to as intent-based outcome specification, it is the third paradigm of UI. This is interesting because out of all of this time frame, this is the first time this has happened in our lives. So, what is it? Well, if you really wanted to boil it down, Jakob Nielsen basically describes it as a time when the user no longer tells the computer what to do, enter a command. The user tells the computer the outcome that they want. And now the computer will figure out the types of actions or commands it needs to take in order to produce that outcome. This is a massive change in the way the computing works and will be a massive change in the way that we interact with it. So when we think about the idea of UX, we have to rethink everything. And so the significant part of this is when we could say, well, from enterprise computing to personal computing to internet computing to mobile computing to cloud computing, and we look at this whole rush of various phases in technological development. The interesting thing about the bar here on the right is we are pairing a technological shift with a UI paradigm shift, and we've never done that in our current lives, okay? So now, of course, there's probably some that remember the batch processing days, but you can also imagine that the time frame that that evolution happened was over the course of many years, and the time frame that we expect this to happen will be exponentially faster. So, an example, and we're all well aware, because I would say the vast majority of the company now has probably baked in some level of AI interaction into their daily workflow. I can essentially submit something like this, create me an image that's suitable for a 5-year-old's birthday. She likes puppies and bubbles, and within a few seconds, I'll generate this image, right? Now, this is a pretty darn good image. Now, if you're a graphic designer, you might notice there's a few little issues on the balloons. It's 5H rather than TH, and there's a few little things there. But the fact that this was created in seconds is still quite amazing, even though in terms of AI, it's kind of become just common knowledge. And so if you compare that, though, to the command-based cycle of UI, you could imagine the hundreds, if not thousands of commands it would take somebody to create that image in an alternative way, okay? So just that one example starts to show the sort of changes that we can see between these types of interactions with computers. So what is this impact on product vision? A lot of the times I'll share things about Vendasta's product vision, but in this case from a UX perspective, what's the impact on product vision? Well, it changes everything. It changes everything, okay? And so as we move into the idea of intent-based outcome specification, we are no longer just saying what technology can do. We have to rethink how people interact with it altogether. And this is a very, very interesting and very, very exciting time as somebody who has been a UX professional for the vast majority of my professional career. And so, this is another slide that Brendan shared earlier, but yesterday we essentially see the user, say, logging in and using our GUI or graphical user interface and entering commands into it and having some CRUD database in the back end, creating, reading, updating, deleting things. And in the future, we start to see essentially a bit of a hybrid model happening where somebody comes in and their primary interaction point over time starts to become the idea that they're interacting, they're interfacing with an AI agent. And secondarily, they would use the graphical user interface if they need to do something manually. And over time, we'll probably see more and more percentage of people's interaction time moving on to the idea of managing agents and providing more intentions for what they want the computer to do rather than commands in actually how to do it. So, and we will probably see this even evolve over the next few years. So, in this type of idea, when we start to explore conceptual product vision, we have to think about the idea of Vendasta's AI workforce. And so concepts that you'll see floating around really lay out that workforce in a way that says, hey, great, I've got essentially a number of virtual employees that I can go ahead and provide some intention or some outcome to, and they'll go and produce that output. I don't have to tell them how to do it. And along with that now is essentially a new set of AI-first design principles. And this is Vendasta's first draft of that. And I'm not going to bore you and go through all of them. I'm not the type to read text necessarily, but I'll highlight a few. One might be embrace open configuration. And so in our designs, yeah, there's probably still that hybrid model. At some point, I want to go into my AI agent or my AI employee, and I want to be able to deeply configure what they do, how they work, what the sound of their voice is like, what their personality is like, what they know, what data they have access to. I still want that configuration. Open configuration is still a principle that we should probably abide by. But the others are kind of interesting. Things like learn from users iteratively. Well, this is where we're going to start to see more of a conversational interface with AI, much like we see in Inbox today, except that I can come into the platform and I can actually have a conversation with this virtual employee or AI employee. And if it happens to be a content specialist, maybe I'm working through with it to create content. If it happens to be something like maybe, I don't know, maybe a sales coach, maybe I'm working through to review recent sales calls to provide optimization for how I can do better at my craft. The other one might be offering multiple input options. Now, again, this is something that's been around for a really long time. In this case, maybe there's something like where I could use voice rather than typing, and that's nothing necessarily new. But what is new is the fact that I'm actually talking to AI, right? And so this is something new in how you're interfacing with the computer. And so these are some of the principles we're starting to explore, at least in phase one of the era of AI. Now, this is also something that the underlying principle in terms of UX is we might put a match to those principles and completely rewrite them at any given time, depending on advancements in technology. But generally, all of those principles, really in the examples that I've used, apply to the idea of me as a user prompting and getting a response from the employee themselves. There's other areas that we have to figure out, which is how do I manage my knowledge base and how does this AI employee gain access to it? And you're seeing preliminary designs flowing through into our development and into our production environment currently, but also in the idea for how that AI employee accesses a set of tools. So when Brendan says one of our advantages as an organization is our data sets and our workflows, what he's getting at is saying as a system, if I back up one slide here, we can create a knowledge base about a business that accelerates how smart that AI employee is. And the second part is we have a broad platform that we can actually now provide access to for AI to complete jobs, right? Or to actually drive an outcome in which you've specified. And this is an advantage for us, and it's something that we will move very quickly on. So the other side of it is as we move forward and we're figuring all this thing out, we are also in the process of rethinking traditional UI. So I'll take you for a moment back to Jakob Nielsen. And in 1999, I just wanted to use one other example of his where he was blogging about mobile access on the internet. And if you're thinking about this, well, you know, we kind of think around 2008 when the iPhone dropped, when this really became a thing. He's very much been a thought leader in the space, and here we have him 9 years earlier talking about some of this. In fact, in the article, you can still read it today, he's talking about a couple of things. One is an urge for designers to stop designing fixed width websites because we're going to need to move into a time when somebody's pulling up all kinds of different screen resolutions and size and ratios from their pocket. And the second thing is he has concerns about our privacy and our ability to always be notified and our ability to have to be connected and on at all times, which we've kind of just taken as life now, but at the time was a concern. In 2024, he's talking about generative UI, and this is an area that we might not see propagate in the immediate future because he is a thought leader in the space. But again, I don't think it's going to take 9 years for some of this to start to happen. We're seeing some of this start to happen with various companies on the early prototyping side where you can prompt and create UI prototypes. And you're seeing some of this where you could create a prompt and actually create a pretty basic application. But this will be something that will grow quite quickly. And so if you're wondering what generative UI is, this is essentially where at one time frame, what no longer happens is a user comes in and every user in this room and at Vendasta could log into an application and get the same interface. But in the future, generative UI might be in the idea that you would log in and you would get a personalized interface based on the information you want, what you usually do, how you learn and absorb information. And this is a drastically different approach to what it would even mean to design an application because it is going to be customized and modified for every individual user. Now, these are theoretical areas at the moment, but they are areas that are advancing quickly, and it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on them. And so when I will come back to you with a product vision presentation, and all I'm doing today is setting it up in the idea that there is such massive change happening in this space that we need to be very specific when we're communicating, whether we're talking about theoretical, something farther out that isn't quite there yet, but in theory could be, conceptual, technology that's ramping up now, and we need to start to take very seriously, because within the 1 to 3 year time frame, this is going to allow Vendasta to remain competitive. And in the 1 year vision, this is available today. We are going to be launching this stuff as soon as we can get it through the roadmap. And so when we get into vision, we'll focus on the conceptual side, but that's not to say that we don't have to be aware of what's happening on the theoretical side, so that we can sort of move through and stay very adaptive and agile along the way. It's never been more important. And so with that, it is a journey that not just Vendasta and everybody in this room and everybody part of this company gets to go together, but humanity is going to take this journey together, whether we like it or not, right? This is where we're going. And so I personally think it's a super exciting area. I'm very honored, and on a day to celebrate the idea of love, it's just an area where we get to kind of do this together with great intentions to create very much value for our user base, our customer base, and deliver a product that matters, okay? And so it's a great journey to be on together. So yeah, with that, much love. I did have one little thing I wanted to say for myself, and that is that gin pairing event that I talked about earlier. There's a little bit left over. So if you're really nice to me, I'll be working the bar here this afternoon. And Anisha and I might even whip you up one of these gin martinis. And so yes, please come pay me a visit. You can tell me your thoughts on the future of technology, and I'll just sit there and listen and watch you enjoy one of these delicious cocktails. With that, though, I'm going to hand things over to John. I don't know if we've got a slide up for him. We might need to refresh, but John, take it away.
Nothing like coming up afterwards and kind of thinking, all right, does my presentation make sense with what Brian just talked about? But the answer is, yes, it does. We're safe. We're aligned here. What I'm here to talk about today is Vendasta Connect, an event that's coming up on March 12th that we'll be putting together. Is this what we're using for the clicker now? Oh, wow. And we've titled it the Next Wave in the AI Gold Rush. And we've been doing these Vendasta Connect events either quarterly, semi-quarterly, all these different time frames. But this is the next one that's coming up. And when it came time to think about how we were going to promote this, we recognized that, okay, there was that Super Bowl thing that was happening. And with all of the talk that's going around about AI and all of the investment that a bunch of companies are doing in AI, had a feeling that there was going to be a lot of companies who are really, really focused on talking about the grand things that are possible with AI and all of these really, really big, amazing promises. And we said, you know what? It's our turn to make a Super Bowl ad. Let's think about this. Let's use AI to its fullest capabilities, and let's make our own Super Bowl ad for Vendasta Connect. So with that, let's have a watch.
AI is everywhere. At home, at work, where you shop. It's even generating this video. But is it actually helping? Some AI just makes life harder. But when AI solves a real problem, everything changes.
Hi, this is Amy from the local bakery. How can I assist you today?
Hey, I was hoping to order some croissants, like 20 ham and cheese.
Got it. You'd like to place an order for 20 croissants. Let me check with our team to ensure we can accommodate that order.
An AI receptionist that answers calls, books appointments, and helps customers, so you can focus on your business. Join us at Vendasta Connect 2025 for an exclusive look at how AI is transforming customer acquisition, lead conversion, and SMB success. March 12th, 2025 at 10 a.m. CST. It's happening online and it's free to attend. Save your spot now.
Thanks, everyone. And I do want to take a little moment to maybe address some people who are saying, hey, why are we saying these things about AI not doing its best job? And I think I'm not alone in recognizing that here at Vendasta, we have a really good understanding of the importance and the changes that are coming with AI. But that's not necessarily happening for everyone. And when I look at some of the different advertising that I see different companies doing, there's things that just don't really make sense to a lot of people. For example, this was an ad from Salesforce where Matthew McConaughey was saying how much trouble he was having because he couldn't get to his gate on time in Heathrow Airport, and if instead he would have used Agentforce, he would have found the most efficient route to get to his gate in Heathrow. And I don't know about you, but I've been to Heathrow twice, and I always got to my gate on time. And even today, with how much I use ChatGPT in just making the meal, I don't know if I would buy Salesforce to get me to my gate on time. So people are seeing that there's a lot of these promises that people are making, or they're coming up with these ideas of how AI is going to solve these problems. But in a lot of cases, there's this problem where it's not meeting the hype because this is what it's going to do. It's going to change everything. And while we're right, it's not happening quite yet. A little quote there. The data shows a gulf between what desk workers wish AI would allow them to focus on and the ultimate effect they predict it will have on their work lives. Employees most want AI to allow them to refocus their time on meaningful activities, but they suspect that AI could lead to more busy work and increased workload. And so what we're doing is we're going directly against this sort of disillusionment. We're saying, yeah, a lot of people might be selling you snake oil, but we're not. We're selling you an AI receptionist that's going to change the small business world forever. And on Vendasta Connect, we're going to be making some big announcements about how that's possible. Showing more AI employee capabilities, bringing AI employees to Partner Center, talking about going across different borders with WhatsApp AI, and of course, for all the people who are already excited, talking about packaging pricing and moving it out of beta. So we have a number of events, or I should say parts to the program schedule, the product demo. We're going to have some thought leadership as well as some nice success stories showing how people are already using the beta version, and some tactical workshops for our partners to see how they can implement it. We have just a little bit of massaging to do to give you the full program there. We'll make sure that you have that coming soon. But we do have the 2 workshop sessions locked in there as well. We've got a big wide team working on it here. Just a big shout out to everyone involved so far. Getting even something like that Super Bowl ad out was a fair amount of work, even with AI generating. We're working towards to drive even more registrants and attendees from our last event. So November 2024, we got a nice sizable amount of registrants and attendees, but we're of course looking to drive that higher and have even bigger attendance rate. I will say this 43% for our last AI workforce event. 43 attendance rate is pretty dang good for a webinar. But we want to see if we can drive that even higher. And so our goals for 2025, or I should say our March 2025 event, 2,000 registrants and 800 attendees. We're going to have a world-class event experience of a 4.8+ NPS score. And then we want to get to 4,000 activations of Inbox Pro, which gets us our customers, their AI employees. We have a call to action here. I believe Kat is going to be posting this in the All Hands channel, but we want you to help spread the word, share details with your partners, your prospects, your network. Use those event assets we've created to promote. That Super Bowl ad that we created, that wasn't just for us to have a good laugh. I don't have it ready to share yet because we do need to change one thing about that. If you figure out what it is, let me know when we do post it for sharing. But then when we have that, what a great thing to post with the network, especially for those folks who might be skeptical of the impact that AI can have. And of course, we want you to attend the event as well. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see the results that we can drive, and maybe what we've got planned just in the near future for AI. Thanks.
All right. I think that finishes up all hands. So again, travel safe if you're out on the roads this weekend for the long weekend, and enjoy. And if you are in HQ and want to come up and pay a visit, I will be at the bar at 3 o'clock to make you something special. So have a great weekend, everyone.